Chancellor, the immediate past Vice Chancellor, Professor Abdallah Adamu. We will have done this before he exits just some few weeks ago, but because of the time and the busy schedule, we decided to do this today. We have panelists from BUK to NOUN and different parts of the world. I use this opportunity to thank people that have joined us. Canada is 8 hours behind us. Australia, Europe, of course, we're in the same time frame, but with the situation, we appreciate you for joining. And of course, in different parts of Nigeria and our colleagues here, we appreciate you for being part of this as usual. You wouldn't have joined in vain. You will have learned, and then you also contribute to knowledge. I have a reservation from the university librarian, Dr. Saleh, and we thought he will be giving the vote of thanks. I will private chat the Vice Chancellor. I can see the Deputy Vice Chancellor. Welcome, sir. We deeply appreciate your leadership, sir. Yes, sir. And so Professor Bosworth, one of our senior professors, we welcome you, sir. And all the fellows of the center. More importantly, I should say this, Dr. Gloria Aneto has been so wonderful. Marketing, recruiting, we deeply appreciate you, ma'am. Dr. John Oparaduru, also wonderful, helping me. These two are exceptional fellows of the center, along with the staff of the center and even non-staff. We sincerely appreciate you, and God appreciates you more. We have about 2 more minutes. So the presenters in this order are Dr. Noura Ibrahim. Please, Dr. Noura, if you are with us and you are not signing in with the name that I've just mentioned, kindly go to rename or you private chat me so that I can, identify you appropriately. I will also give co-host to our presenters should they wish to share a PowerPoint. But we have our distinguished Professor Abdallah Adamu just joining. We thank you, sir, for the leadership. We thank you for this vision. And I can tell you that our Vice Chancellor, Professor Femi Peters, was the #1, just like you were doing. He came in before me. He came in, he joined the webinar before me. I think I was #2, Baba Sogolo was #3, and then in that others joined. So we appreciate you, sir. So I was talking about the order of presentation. I have 1 minute to do all the ground remarks. Dr. Noura, BUK, Dr. Shidima Onwubiri, the former HOD of Mass Communication, Professor Alide, in that order, Dr. Eric Omazu. Thank God I got his surname right. I used to say something else. And then last but not the least is our Professor Emeritus, Baba Godwin Sogolo. Sorry, I have to put Baba there. I cannot just call. I'm a Yoruba boy from Lagos Island proper. I'm not in Gige, Lagos, Victoria Island, and Faleke, Lagos, Mushi. I thank you all. And in that order, we have the presentation. The Vice Chancellor, sir, Professor Femi Peters, the immediate Vice Chancellor, Professor Abdallah Adamu, in whose honor we are gathering today for this roundtable titled Global Media Discourse, Contextualizing Professor Abdallah Adamu. The principal officers, DVC Professor Uduma, and other principal officers that join us. Maybe I couldn't identify them. So we are starting, and the first item is for the Vice Chancellor, Professor Femi Peters, to give us a brief welcome address. He's the chief host. I'm just an anchoring guy for this event. He is the one that actually, the brain behind this particular program to celebrate his colleague and his friend. And so we'll listen to you, sir. Mr. Vice Chancellor, I'm going to ask you to unmute, sir. Let me see. Let me just type. I muted everyone because some people were talking. So you've been asked to unmute, sir, the Vice Chancellor, sir.
Yes, right. Good morning, everybody. Most especially my Oga, Mr. Vice Chancellor, Professor Abdallah. I want to welcome you once again to one of our forums. Professor Baba Soglo and other panelists and the other members of staff who are here and our other friends. It's my pleasure to welcome Professor Abdallah once again to an activity in the university. And in the real sense, he is still the main person. And I think for some time in this university, he will still remain somebody that we'll be talking about. So I want to welcome him. And I hope that he has enjoyed the peace of for some time now. Now, this particular activity we are having for him, it's without us knowing it, it's actually trying to make a case for him. Professor Abdallah, we know we used to call him double professor. And within the context of the Global Center of Excellence that we have, this man actually typifies that center, and I will explain to you. You know, he's a professor of science education, which was his first path, his first love. Then he was born again. He now became a professor of medical and cultural communication. Now, what we're saying therefore is that this man migrated, or is he emigrated, from science education to media and cultural communication. Now, you see, the indices of the state that he was before and the state that he is now, I think is the whole essence of what this center is all about. What are the elements and what are the things that you need to do after you have moved from place A to place B to make yourself as acceptable in place B as if in actual fact you are originally from in place B. That is what Abdallah has demonstrated. And you see, it must have been extremely, the way he did it was extremely easy for him. This was a man who had top-notch schools when he was doing a science education. He went to Ibi Zaria, one of the best schools in Nigeria. Then he went to the University of London, Chelsea College, for his master's. Then he went to Success. So you cannot say that this man was not a thoroughbred in science education. Don't forget also that he also even had a fellowship. He went on sabbatical to US. And it was there that I noticed this immigration issue coming into his life without him knowing. Let me read what he said he did there. He said while he was at Berkeley, he wrote a monograph, Reform and Adaptation in Nigerian University Curricula, which explores the transfer, note that word though, the transfer of educational influence. Rather than use transfer, we should just use migrate, still within the context of this center of excellence. Transfer of educational influences and structures from the USA to Nigeria, and the substitution of British educational system in Nigeria during the process. So all what I understand about your center is the center that has had very enlightening, educative, intellectual discourse on the issue of migration. How you could settle in a place that you once were not known for. This is what Abdallah has done, and he has done it so well. In his present field of media and cultural communication, how he's been able to manage moving from science to that one is still a baffle to me. Now, if you just know him now, you will never know he was a science person because of the way he raps, he talks. He says he's introvert. He has converted the scientific introvertness into being an extrovert when he moved. So everything about Abdallah is moving from one stage to another stage and doing it so perfectly well that sometimes you wonder that where he has moved to, he's always been there. And that is the kind of man that we have. So, ladies and gentlemen, I cannot but marvel at the way, the dexterity of his changing faces that Abdallah has demonstrated in his life. We really miss him. Already we are missing him. And I used to wonder, this morning I called the secretary and I said, how would Abdallah have handled this particular case? And she just laughed. And that really is the kind of man that this man was. A center of excellence. One of the legacy that he has bequeathed us. I wish him all the best, and I wish you all. I therefore open the discussion for us to hear more about this man within the context of migration. Thank you very much, Mr. Compere.
Thank you very much, sir, for the opening remarks. You will be called back at a later time. So your time starts now, sir, Professor Sogolo.
Thank you very much. The Vice Chancellor, Professor Olufemi Peters, the immediate past Vice Chancellor, Professor Abdallah Adamu, other principal officers here present, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I want on behalf of colleagues to express our collective appreciation to the Director of the Center of Excellence in Migration and Global Studies, Professor Ibikule Gani, for initiating this roundtable in honor of both the former Vice Chancellor, Professor Abdallah Adamu, for a successful tenure, and the new Vice Chancellor, Professor Olufemi Peters, for his appointment as the head of this great university. I'm not too sure what the director means by the subtitle Contextualizing Professor Abdallah Adamu, but it appears to suggest an academic evaluation of the scholarly work of the former VC in relation to his research in media and communication, one of his areas of specialization. That, I want to say from the onset, is beyond any of us, almost beyond any of us. I do not believe that we are in a position to assess the scope and depth of the professor's scholarly contribution. Let me confess that as soon as I was introduced to Professor Adamu some 5 years ago, when he assumed office, I sought information online on his academic profile. Lo and behold, What I saw was amazing. Or to put it differently, I was humbled by the professor's gigantic academic profile. Professor Adamu's intimidating profile matches his rich intellectual endowment. I had told the professor once or twice in private, and I hope to say it again publicly without incurring his anger, that what he lacks in physical height has been more than compensated for by his huge intellectual endowment. For anybody who has interacted with Professor Adamu, there can be no doubt that he is abundantly blessed with native intelligence, which he has successfully cultivated to stand out intellectually taller than many of us. Call him a small intellectual giant, if you may. The academic portrait of Professor Adamu, which I paint here, is not different from what most staff of the National Open University of Nigeria have experienced. There are very few men as intellectually alert as Professor Adamu. Take him up on virtually any subject matter, and he is capable of rising to the occasion. He will talk science like a trained scientist, discuss music with the professionalism of musicologists. Professor Adamu will competently engage an artist and on arts and culture. He is capable of entangling legal nuances with lawyers and challenging philosophers on issues of conceptual analysis. However, I should sound a note of caution for those who may be tempted to confuse intellectual versatility with academic prowess. While I can say with certainty that Professor Adamu has the former in abundance, I cannot make any such pronouncement on the latter until I've read most or all of his works, and I have not done so. Indeed, much of what I have to say was gleaned from my series of interactions with him, including meetings during the process that led to the establishment of the new Department of Philosophy in this university. I was curious about his comments on philosophy and philosophers and what they do until I found out that, as a matter of fact, he has been internationally exposed to philosophy. And indeed, he taught a course on the philosophy of science education. On one of such interactions with Professor Adamu, I had to bring a friend, a retired musician, Dele Olowu, who heard Professor Adamu rap on a radio program. Adamu and Olowu discussed music from ancient to modern, national to international, and I listened to both of them utterly mesmerized. For the period Professor Adamu was here as VC, interactions between him and I were almost limited to academic discussions, especially as I was never involved in the administrative aspects of the university. Those involved in that aspect would, I'm sure, have a lot to say about the professor's love for the Yoruba phrase, "Kò sí owó." For me, I had ample opportunities of discussing scholarship with the man. And as it turned out, Professor Adamu had accomplished so much as a scholar, but would say very little or nothing about his achievements. Some say this is modesty and commend it against the biblical injunction that we should not light a candle and put it under the bushel. While it may be true that the tiger does not need to proclaim his tigerhood, Nigerian scholars need to cast their minds back to the controversy that raged in 1986 between the loyalists of Professor Wole Soyinka and those of Professor Chinua Achebe concerning the role of the popular Western media in influencing the decision of who was more qualified for that year's Nobel Prize in Literature. I'm not suggesting that the scholar should take his work to the popular platform, only that in reality, the platform does have tremendous influence. The question is, will it be ethically wrong for Professor Adamu to use the popular media, of which he has become a member, in influencing the public in informing the public about his scholarly work? The negative consequences of his not doing so, nor using any other channel of communication for the same purpose, now has the effect of producing an obscure Abdallah Adamu, hiding his academic treasures at home in Kano. Another important point to make about Professor Adamu is that he is a profoundly radical scholar. Of course, it could not have been otherwise. For a man with 2 titles of professorship in such distinct areas as science, education, and curriculum studies, and media and communication, and media and cultural communication. Although the professor holds on to the 2 titles, he appears to lean more on the side of the media than on the side of science education. For that alone, he is a radical scholar. Yet, scholarship, as Professor Adamu himself knows, is an extremely conservative enterprise, which hardly admits of deviance or radicalism. The plain truth is that scholars of a radical mindset find it difficult to gain either recognition or acceptability by the mainstream academic community. That is what makes the terrain extremely difficult for scholars of Adamu's mode, who very often suffer in obscurity, while their accomplishments are discovered only when they have departed from the scene. In spite, however, of these obstacles, Professor Adamu is still able to cope and pop up his head in this hostile academic environment. And he does so only by virtue of his natural intelligence. Historically, the evolution of academic disciplines have been following a recognized pattern in which some academic disciplines have enjoyed rather higher rating than others. From the beginning and through the Industrial Revolution, the natural sciences, technology, and applied disciplines have always enjoyed higher preferences than the literary disciplines. The natural sciences, pure and applied, receive greater funding and enjoy other privileges not accessible to the social sciences and the humanities. And even among the social sciences and humanities, the more practically useful ones, such as economics, mathematics, law, and business studies, have always stood on a higher pecking order than subjects such as the classical studies, literature, arts, and philosophy. These were the academic values and preferences imported into Nigeria by the colonial masters. The colonial educational systems imported into Nigeria were stereotypes of the educational institutions that existed in Europe and the Western world. Thus, the University of Ibadan and its counterparts in Ghana, Sierra Leone, Kenya, and Uganda were the exact implants of the University of London, with conservative disciplines such as medicine, agriculture, the natural sciences, classical studies, and European languages, to the exclusion of programs such as indigenous African contexts, such as traditional religions, culture, and local languages. Also excluded from the programs of the imported universities in colonial Africa were disciplines such as business administration, accountancy, journalism, etc., that were already trending in the United States of America. And disciplines such as philosophy and law that were suspected to have radicalizing influence on the local populations. Of particular relevance to our discussion here is journalism. It is worth noting that until 1961, when the American-type University of Nigeria, Nsukka, with the influence of Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, pioneered the teaching of journalism, the course did not exist in any Nigerian university, primarily because it was not recognized as an academic discipline. Nsukka was followed by the University of Lagos in 1967. Ahmadu Bello University established the Department of Mass Communication only in 1992. And at Bayero University, Kano, programs in media and communication studies started only more recently, well, not too recent. Up to date, take note of this. Up to date, the University of Ibadan does not teach journalism. Certainly not anything that goes by that name, nor mass media. The nearest Ibadan has is the Department of Communication and Language Arts, based in the Conservative Faculty of Arts, where I was once dean. Ibadan may have its own excesses, but every university has the right to set its own standards and draw its academic boundaries. The point to emphasize is that journalism, whether traditional or digital, is new to the League of Scholarship. And in virtually all academic institutions, a new discipline hardly attracts the same level of respectability as old and established ones. That is the first leg of Professor Adamu's predicament. It is only the professor, it's only Professor Adamu can say if indeed his colleagues in the more conventional disciplines truly accord his academic achievement their deserved credit. The second leg of Professor Adamu's predicament is tied to the adage that a prophet is not without honor save in his own country, meaning that no matter the authentic, no matter how authentic the scholarly work of Professor Adamu is, at analyzing the popular culture and oral tradition in the context of Hausa society, film, and drama, his ideas will forever be perceived, even by the illiterate and the totally ignorant in his own community, as commonplace or mundane, if not ordinary. More important, there is a great deal of merit in the argument that when a scholar's area of research is exclusively restricted by the
1 minute, sir.
All right, I'll still run over, I'll still finish. Just give me a few minutes. Esoteric research in peculiarities of language and culture, as in Professor Adamu's rather esoteric research in Hausa drama, media, and communication, participation tends to be exclusive, so much so that confidence in the academic quality of such work wobbles. Indeed, the belief is that a large number of academics hide their research incompetence in the pretext of interest in local circumstances, language, and culture. In saying this, we must tread with caution because Professor Adamu's approach is not only comparative, but also transnational, even when specific emphasis is on the local material of Muslim popular culture as depicted in Hausa films, music, and pattern. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, I do not think this presentation will be complete without my saying that Professor Adamu is a very passionate human being. Congratulations, Professor Abdallah Uba Adamu, as you return fully to the academic world after a successful tenure as Vice Chancellor. I thank you all for the patience.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We apologize for the technical challenges.
Okay.
Dr. Noura Ibrahim, I've asked you to unmute. You can go ahead. You have 10 minutes, sir.
That was the problem.
Dr. Nura Ibrahim is with the BUK, that is Bayero University, Kano. He was having some challenges. He was supposed to go first. Are you there, sir? Can you
I'm with you now.
Okay, sir. Go ahead. 10 minutes, sir.
Well, thank you, Professor Hakim Tijani. I'm very, very grateful and to be here. First of all, I would like to congratulate the new Vice Chancellor, Professor Olufemi Peters, for this exalted position, and to congratulate Professor Abdallah for a successful tenure at BC, now National Open University. Professor Olufemi Peters, I don't know him. I know him through Professor Abdallah Uba Adamu. We have a thing here in Bayero University, Kano. We gauge somebody just by mere saying that professor say, you are this, you are that, we know definitely you are. And Professor Olufemi Peters, to us, from the perspective of Professor Abdallah Adamu, he's an academic by excellence, a man with integrity. So I said congratulations, and I wish you a successful tenure at BC National Open University. When Professor Tijani contacted me and told me that I'm going to talk on the contextualizing Professor Abdallah Ubadamu, just as Professor Godwin Shogolo, I said, who am I to contextualize Professor Abdallah Ubadamu? Because Abdallah Ubadamu is somebody I knew around 1997, 1998, when he came to the Department of Mass Communication and presented a paper, a seminar from the Department of Science Education. We were told that a professor from Science Education will present a seminar paper in the Department of Mass Communication. And we were all curious. We said, oh, what is he going to tell us? There he came. He presented a paper, Enter the Dragon. That's how he titled the paper, Enter the Dragon. Sharia, popular culture, and House of Him in Northern Nigeria. And we said, wow. He presented the paper about 15 to 20 minutes, and we are all perplexed. We don't know what to say. The methodology, the theoretical framework, the graphs or the thing in at the moment was so superb. So most of us, the young academician then, we follow him to his office, telling him our problems here and there. And he said, you are writing your MSc research, and the topic is completely obsolete now. If you are willing, if you want to look at it radically, I'm willing to help you. And say, yes, I'm ready to go to. But many people call me and say, hey, you are going to deal with a very difficult person. Go with him. If you don't want to talk, my mind, I have to start writing my MSc from scratch. But believe me, if I was given another chance today, I will go for it because it pays. When I was told that I'm going to contextualize Professor Abdallah Ubadamu, I look at his publication as an academician. As of when he became a professor, a professor of media and cultural studies in 2012, myself and other of his students, his colleagues, we organized a conference in honor of Professor Abdallah Ubadamu. And believe me, more than 50 academicians from across the world presented papers. I recall one of the best papers presented was by Professor Pemi Saka. He wrote a paper and it's on film. So after the conference, we decided that definitely we cannot let this go. So we decided to come up with this. It's a postscript in honor of Professor Abdallah Ubadamu. And after the conference, we go through the papers, about 54 papers presented. And even though there is a kind of Boko Haram attack when in the midst of the conference, just when we were holding the conference, the second day, there was this attack. So we have to cut the conference short, but still we have 54 papers. So we have to go through all the papers and see how we can get the best papers. And believe me, we have to, because of the financial resources, we have to cut the size to 25 articles. Very, very solid articles, 25. So Professor Abdallah Adamu, in that publication, in this test script, we have his short CV, where we know he presented, he has 60 publications, both national and international, on media and cultural studies. And I believe with professors of mass communication, media and cultural studies. I met them, but still some of them, they were battling to have just enough publication to make them become a professor. But Abdallah Adamu, from the time I knew him, that was 1998, 99, to date, to the time when he became the Vice Chancellor of National Open University, he has 60 publications, international and national. That's plus 128 publications he has in education. And I keep on asking myself, who am I to contextualize this gigantic academician? But I want to also look at him from another spectrum, as a father, as a mentor. Abdallah Adamu mentored me Nasara Yakubu Kurpi, and there's Professor Bashir Ali now at the National Open University, at the Kaduna State University. When Professor Adamu moved to the mass comm department, he brought what Sogolu said, radical change, because he's so radical himself. So he brought that radical change with him, because we used to concentrate on analyzing Vanguard, analyzing Daily Trust, analyzing television shows. You know. Then Professor Adamu, he said, hey, you, there are a lot of artifacts that need our study, that need us to analyze. Look at the posters that are going around. Then there is all these posters, you know, of Osama bin Laden, Saddam Hussein. He said, what are they saying? Who are they communicating to? Who are the target audience? Why can't you do something? And there am I. Did my PhD on that. Have an international publications, about 5 of it from that PhD. Said one of us again, Hassan Yao, he said, properly, asked him, why can't you look at this truck art? God Day. You know, all this art that was written on the back of the truck. Jesus, I'm covered with the blood of Jesus. God is my. He said, why can't you do something? Then Minister Yakubu Kurpi asked him to look at, you know, intertextuality in Magana Jarichi. And there you are. The department is now fully transformed to what we are today. Prof make the department write the concept of faculty of communication, because now we have a faculty of communication in Bayero University, and it's as a result of Prof. He came up with all the syllabus, the curriculum for faculty of communication before he left for now. And now we are just about to see that thing being actualized. So when Professor Abdallah came to the Department of Mass Communication, believe me, we have only 2 PhDs. Only 1 PhD, 2 PhDs, sorry. One, he did this in London, and the other one, he was a postgraduate scholar. But when Professor Abdallah Adamu came to the department, we saw about 13 PhDs, both within, that is, we, the local there, then people from ABU. The department graduated 13 PhDs. This is what Professor Abdallah Adamu is. He mentored. You know, when you come to the, I would like one day Professor Sugole, yes, to come to the department now that the professor is back. Even when he came back, the first day he came back, then his office is now what? Become the center of attraction, because they lived in the faculty building. We live in another building, but hardly you see us going to the faculty building, because if there's no faculty board order, we just remain where we are. But when Professor Abdallah Adamu came, he is just like a father. He called all of us, more especially during lunchtime. We go to his office, do whatever you want to do there. You drink tea, he asks you, okay, go, operate it. Why can't you do? This is Abdallah Adamu. Then there's one thing that keep on coming back to me, the town and gown relationship that Professor Adamu has established between the Department of Mass Communication and the local filmmakers in the state. He organized an international conference on Hausa film, where he brought international scholars. They discussed a lot of issues, and even at now, I still argue that there is no document that has a literature on Hausa film that, other than that. Professor Adamu single-handedly handled that, and it was so successful. Again, when he came to the department, many people are not even aware of international publication, going to the international journal, and suddenly Professor Abdallah opened a lot of doors. Why can't you write to this journal? He makes sure that we are no longer local in the Department of Mass Communication. I have the opportunity to travel with Professor Abdallah Adamu more than 5 times in my life. And what I saw every time we went out is, I keep on saying, who is this? There was a time we traveled with a professor to Cologne. It was so cold, but the moment we entered the hotel, he entered his hotel room, he said, okay, now, get me something to eat. Because before I came back, he was on his laptop, trying to fix a lot of things. He is always so workaholic. He's always looking for new things. That's why in the Faculty of Communication, now we have a Department of Information and Media Studies, the only one so far in operation in the Nigerian universities, Department of Information and Media, and it is as a result of his hard work. So to say that we can contextualize, or I don't know the others, but I cannot really effectively contextualize Professor Abdallah Adamu, but I can just say, keep on talking and talking, but still I keep on remembering so many things that make him what he is.
Thank you, Dr. Ibrahim. Thank you very much. We appreciate you.
Yes.
You've said more than enough. Sometimes in 2009, somebody called me from Austin and called me in Baltimore and said, Tijani, I need you to write a paper as a chapter entry. We are celebrating the Warrant Chiefs. Warrant Chiefs is a popular thesis, one of the first 3 that bagged PhD in the University of Ibadan, History Department. And for a month, I did not respond. Why? Because I searched for the Warrant Chief. It's late now, so I can mention his name. Late Professor Adele Afibo. And I searched, I couldn't find anything thereafter since 1964 when he got his PhD. No mentoring, no PhD student, nothing. So the senior colleague called back and said, what is wrong with you, Hakim? I said, you should send me a chapter. So I asked him, I said, how many children has he produced? He was still living then, Afibo. He said, what has children got to do with, so I said, look, you know me, sir, I do not publish for promotion. I publish towards promotion. And I've had my tenure. I don't celebrate people just simply because of it. I celebrate people that are worthy of being celebrated. So I refused to write a chapter entry. Of course, they went ahead, they published a first read in honor of Afibo, but I do believe strongly that since he failed to produce 1 PhD student between 1964 and 2009, there's nothing worthy of celebration. So we'll continue to celebrate you, sir. And I think Dr. Ibrahim has validated. Kindly mute yourself, Dr. Ibrahim. Dr. Eric, you have the virtual floor. we have to speed up because the VC, as I stated, joined before we started, patiently waiting, and something is coming up. Maybe it can yield us additional 15 minutes. We're supposed to be here for 1 hour or so. So please, Dr. Eric, you have, I would say, between 5 to 10 minutes to celebrate Professor Adamu. And the same goes for Aliede and Owobere that I will call shortly. So Dr. Eric, please unmute yourself. You've been asked to unmute. And my apologies if I have to cut on your time. Are you with us, Dr. Eric Omazu?
Yes, I'm here.
Shoot, sir.
Yes.
Without killing anybody.
Good morning, Vice Chancellors, present and past, Professors Femi Peters and Abdallah Adamu, the host of this panel, Professor Hakim Tijani, my Ogas in Philosophy, Emeritus Professor Godwin Sogol and Professor Udumo Juduma, professors and colleagues present, I thank you all. In a special way, I thank Emeritus Professor Sogoro and Dr. Nura for the kind and beautiful words they said about Professor Abdallah Adamu. How I wish I could articulate the depth of my own indebtedness to him. And as is tradition between us, I'm sure he will not allow me, or he will not want me to say anything about him. Now, let's get to the business of the day. I have articulated a topic for my own presentation, and I called it A Voice from Below. A Voice from Below, Abdallah Adamu and the Dialogics of Postmodernism. Now, I took a look at the 29 works that Abdallah Adamu produced while he was the Vice Chancellor of the National Open University of Nigeria. 29 academic articles. And for my study examination of them, I discovered that all of them are about Hausa culture. All of them except 3. So about 26 of them are about Hausa culture, African culture, and then projecting this to the world. Now, what struck me most importantly is that Abdallah Adamu is actually, was actually engaged in what I may call a battle against modernism and Eurocentrism, you know, where the Western paradigm, especially in meaning making and knowledge production, is often projected as objective universal. And like we all know, this practice has its root in modernity, in its rejection of God and adoption of anthropocentric understanding of the world, where man in the transhumanist schema became truly the measure of all things. The implication being that things, including man himself, took on the values assigned to them by man and as determined by the human reason alone. The pitfall of Eurocentrism and therefore of modernism is easily demonstrated by the fact that this all-important function of valuation, or if you like, of value making, became the sole right of the Western world, as against the old order of theocentrism, where the meaning, essence, and existence were determined by the gods. The European or Western man determines them in the modern time. The earliest dramatization of this we see in Hegel's philosophy of history, where the Occidental world assumes stature as matured adults governed by reason. The Oriental world is projected as a world governed by understanding and inferior to its Occidental counterpart. The African, on the other hand, is at the lowest ebb of the ladder, trapped in infancy and tied irredeemably to the dictates of the senses. Now, The consequence of this is that the simultaneous processes of the development of capitalist mode of production and the destruction of people and livelihoods, which were regarded as backward, barbaric, savage, traditional, pre-capitalist, and so forth. And unfortunately for us, Africa was also described as such. Now, how do Africans respond to this? How do we respond to this challenge, to this description of us? Negative description of us. I identify three styles of responses. The first consists in acquiescing to the claim of African inferiority. Abdallah is famous for this, with his claim that Africa has contributed nothing towards civilization and development. The second strand entails inversion of meaning. In towing this part, Se2, through his idea of negritude, accepted the claim that the African, though in possession of reason, is governed by emotion, as opposed to the European, who, though is possessive of emotion, is governed mainly by reason. He defends the legitimacy of emotion as source of knowledge, describing knowledge that comes by it as intuitive, while that deriving from reason, he termed analytical. Abdallah Adamu can be situated within the third strand, and this third strand was inaugurated by Wole Soyinka in his famous critique of negritude, where he chastised Se2 with this saying: "A tiger does not proclaim his tigritude, he pounces." So this was the route taken by Abdallah Adamu. For him, it is not necessary to argue whether the African is in possession of reason or not. Given his earlier training as a scientist, Abdallah Adamu told the path of demonstrative knowledge. Of course, he had to show the civilizational or cultural attainments of Africa, the Hausa culture. And he equally had to demonstrate that they are constructs of reason. The reason of an African man, the reason of an Hausa person. As a postmodern scholar, Adamu has no interest in the argument about the superiority or otherwise of any system, whether that system is African, whether it is Oriental, or whether it is Occidental. For him, they constitute different and valid ways of understanding the world, of making sense of it, and of surviving in it. Now, in the next section, which I entitled Abdallah Adamu and the Dialogics of Speech and Writing, I hold that Abdallah transcended or what we call dialectics as propounded by Friedrich Hegel, where we have thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. You know, in Hegel's dialectics, the reconciliation of violent dichotomy that exists between thesis and antithesis gives rise to synthesis. An important observation which we must make here is that the emergence of synthesis eliminates the individual characteristics of the thesis and its counter order, the antithesis. What emerges when this is done is a hybrid being, a monster in search of other prey for destruction. What is paramount in dialectics is the elimination of difference, which culminates in what Fukuyama regards as the end of history and the emergence of the last man, understood as the triumph of the West or of the Western ideal, evident in the total exhaustion of viable systematic alternatives to Western ideal. The claim that the Western ideal, its culture and its science was the last man standing is what is contested by Abdallah Adamu. Scholars like him cut short Fukuyama's celebration of the triumph of Western culture by proclaiming the survival of other cultures and their indestructibility. Through his writing and speeches, he demonstrated that centuries of suffering and pain occasioned by slavery and colonialism have not obliterated the African voice. Despite wounded, denied, and buried, the African voice rises, not in mockery of the aborted celebration of Western triumphalism, but in declaration of its own immortality.
Dr. Eric, I'll give you 1 minute. I know you have a lot to say, but because of time, and we're also looking at a special journal edition with the permission of the editor-in-chief, Professor Emeritus Sogolo. We will talk about that later. Hopefully, Dr. Ibrahim will be able to join as an editor. We'll work on that. So I am going to ask you to discontinue the underdevelopment of Africa as historicized by Walter Rodney and then contextualized by Professor Abdallah Adamu and the rest of it. We thank you so much.
But you say I have 1 minute, Prof. You didn't allow me to take the 1 minute again.
Okay, 30 seconds.
Okay. Now, the next section is what I call Hausa culture to the world, you know? And in Hausa culture, by Hausa culture, a term Abdallah uses interchangeably with northern Nigeria. This was mainly the focus of most of his writings, you know? Now, it is important that before he came on board in media and cultural studies, that the real experts in that field were Europeans. And this is where you have people like Rupert East and John Edward, among others. Now, despite all their good intentions, these Europeans lack the special advantage which being an African confers. You know, the specific African feelings, the myths and images which the African possess, and then which only him could understand, you know, in the context of his own culture. They lacked it. And then we are unable to project the African, the Hausa culture as it is. So Abdallah undertook the study of Hausa culture as a practitioner. He stood startling when Western European publishers questioned the objectivity of his research, being that he's a practitioner, he's an Hausa person himself, and they were wondering, how could you give us an objective research? Now, for such Westerners, Abdallah was too involved, too immersed in Hausa culture to study it and to arrive at any objective conclusion about it. What did Abdallah do? His response was to project ethnography as a method, holding that systematic obedience to the method will yield objective conclusion. His research efforts.
Thank you very much.
It's okay.
Thank you very much. Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you very much. We will continue that conversation. I cannot see Professor Aliede here. Neither can I see Dr. Omoberi. Maybe they are in and out. I cannot see them. In the absence of the two colleagues, I will call on Professor Mande, who volunteered to say something. Professor Mande, are you still with us? 1 minute. And then we allow Professor Abdallah to respond. I may not be able to take questions because I don't want to keep the Vice Chancellor any longer than the 15 minutes in addition that he has yielded. Professor Mande, 1 to 2 minutes, sir.
All right, thank you very much. Let me say that Professor Abdallah Uba Adamu is an enigma. Let me just put it at that level. Simplistically put, he's an enigma. Why is he an enigma? I recall some years ago, in my study of communication, the person that we knew in the Department of Mass Communication in Bayero University, Kano then, was the late Professor Mike Egbon. Once you talk about mass communication in Kano, the pillar there then was Professor Mike Egbon. And then, of course, in the University of Lagos, we have Professor Raf Akinfeleye. And then in the University of Nigeria, we have the Professor Ndola and others. Today, what Abdallah has done, and I need to make it clear today, is that I happen to serve as an NUC member team in the balkanization of mass communication in Nigeria. Now, the document that we use in that balkanization, I never knew. It was the document that was submitted to us by Professor Abdallah Adamu, because their Dean of Faculty of Communication then, Professor Omar Pati. I knew him when he was the zonal coordinator of African Council of Communication Education, and I was then the personal assistant to the executive, to the national coordinator then, Professor Ikechukwu Nwosu. So, Professor Omar Pati's, the document which we use, which today led to the balkanization, and other universities have started using, and that is why the Faculty of Communication by University Kano is the first university that now adopted and now indeed put that balkanization into practical reality. We want to commend Professor Godwin Sogolo on some of the things he talked about. Some universities are traditional, but Bayero University Faculty of Communication is an evolutionary university, and that faculty is an evolutionary faculty. Which I want to
thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor. Dr. Omuberi, are you with us now? I can see you signing in. I really want a lady to speak, and you are. Dr. Omuberi, if you are there, can you speak for a few minutes before we listen to Professor Abdallah Adamu? But if you are not there, we will move on with this program. We are past the hour. Dr. Omuberi? Okay. Well, I would like to call on Professor Abdallah Adamu to respond, and then we have the Vice Chancellor or his rep, the DVC, Professor Duma, to make a remark and then close. Thank you, sir. Okay, let me unmute you. I'm sorry, sir. Go ahead and unmute yourself, sir.
Okay, I would like to, first of all, record my appreciation to the Vice Chancellor, Professor Olufemi Peters, for agreeing to this particular activity, that is approving it, for participating in it, and for the wonderful, beautiful comment that he made. I'm really, really grateful, my Vice Chancellor, sir, for this honor that has been done to me. I left Nineveh, as I call now, 12 days ago. And it's like I have not left. You know, my wonderful people are still there celebrating me, and I really appreciate it. At least it made me feel that I have effectively lived with people in a very, very calm and peaceful manner, without any wahala. I mean, I know, I have seen it in the media, some vice chancellors who left and people were celebrating their leaving. They were celebrating, you know, go with God, but go. In some cases, they were even creating a fake obituary of these people. But I'm happy that I am here and I'm sitting down and hearing all these wonderful things about me. So, Vice Chancellor, sir, I would like to thank you very much for taking time out. I was in that chair you are sitting, and so I know how rough things can be, how terrible things are, and the pressures, especially now that you have just taken over. So the absolute pressure that will keep coming on to you. I'm really also grateful, honored that Professor Sogolo, the old man, who glorifies dead white philosophers a lot, has taken time out to make this wonderful comments about me. It actually, Professor Sogolo's presentation made me realize that I'm a migrant. I have always been a migrant. All my works have been about migration. So the creation of Center for Migration and Global Studies was prudent and conscious activity on my part to realize what I have been living, because I'm a product of migrants. One of my grandfathers is from Burkina Faso. One of my grandmothers is from Agadez in Niger Republic. And my father himself traced his roots to Putujalon. That is why I and Justice Sokepun say we are brothers, because Sokepun is also from Sierra Leone. So it's been a son of migrants who have settled in Nigeria over 100 years ago. I feel there's a spirit of movement. And it's not just about individuals moving, but ideas also moving. And ironically enough, it is Professor Sogolo's presentation that really made me aware of this, because I was looking at how American system of education came to Nigeria. And I didn't realize, I didn't articulate that it was a migration. So thank you, Professor Sogolo, for that wonderful reminder. And I might even write something about it. I'm really honored that I am a focus of this. There was a
the Vice Chancellor actually mentioned
by Dr. Noura Ibrahim and his colleagues in Bahrain University. Then there was a press script by Professor Amin Kazim in National Open University. There was another press script by Professor Hakim. And all of this on one person. I would like to thank you very much for all these efforts. And I'd like to thank God for giving me the kind of opportunity for people to write all these wonderful things about me. And I really am beginning to miss NOUN, because I can see all the colleagues, just like when we were doing those seminars, Center for Migration seminars all over again. That's absolutely wonderful. Let me just briefly, because I know like the coordinator said the Vice Chancellor is very busy. Let me just briefly explain to many people who don't know me, how come it is that I have these two dual professorships or dual focus of my research. I was blessed, really blessed to be at the right place and at the right time. That's the only way I can explain it. By 1997, when I became a professor of science education, I was at what I call point zero. I've reached a level where I just simply cannot move further. Research in education in Nigeria is just simply a dead end. We keep saying the same things, repeating over the same thing over and over and over again. And right from the beginning of educational system reform in Nigeria in 1960, up to now, 2021, there has not been much impact. There has not been much curriculum reform, and yet the society is dynamic. So we have been suffering from what I call a diploma disease. And that diploma disease means that we are pushing our education towards certification. Getting a certificate is very important. So I did all the things that I was supposed to do, and I got all the necessary accolades, did all the necessary papers, and became a professor and did my inaugural lecture. Even my inaugural lecture was a critique of the education system, because I titled it Sunset at Dawn, Darkness at Noon. And the whole idea of metaphors, sunset at dawn, how can sun set at dawn and then darkness at noon, shows a retrogressive process. And that is what I analyzed. But nobody cares. Nobody was interested. No problem. So I shifted my focus to something that was happening as part of public debate in northern Nigeria at that particular time. And this was the Islamic environment was criticizing media. The environment was saying media is wrong, media is bad, media leads to bad things and so on. And I said, ooh la la, this is something for me to look at. And I started just casually. It was like what I call casual scholarship. Not really deeply involved, but just casually scholarship. The next thing you know, it has rocketed up. And eventually my vice chancellor in Bahrain University, after about almost 12 years, said, I'm tired of this, I'm tired of this. Let's see how we can make you another professor again. And I was like, ooh, can they make a person 2 professors? And he said, yes, why not? And I was happy because I thought with 2 professorships, I would get 2 salaries. But he gave me only 1. I said, can you just even make it 1.5? I mean, it doesn't have to be 2 salaries. I would settle for 1.5. But they said, no, it's only 1. And I'm happy with 1 salary. So I was at the right place and at the right time. And I was able to help myself, go into it. Noura Ibrahim is my son. He was handed over to me by the former head of the Department of Mass Communication when I was looking for a bright spark. And he had been absolutely wonderful. You need to see this guy in Switzerland, in Cameroon, in South Africa, in Germany, the way he just keeps moving up and down. And I enjoy taking along with them dealing with all these international projects and so on. So thank you very much, Nura, for your wonderful comments. Finally, I didn't even think of my works as migration, but Professor Sogolo has now made it very clear. But he took a leap from the Vice Chancellor, because the Vice Chancellor said, I migrated from science education to media and cultural communication. And that was the first time I actually thought of it as that, as a migrant, as an academic migrant, moving from one place to another. And I think that should be the spirit of scholarship. We shouldn't stay in one place, like Sogolo said, there was so much conservatism in intellectual world. We should move on. We should be disruptive. I like being disruptive. I like the idea of moving to places where other people have not moved. And I hope my works have been able to stimulate people into moving into a different direction. It is a very bold move. You need to be very brave, because you have all these regulations that say, no, you are going to be a professor of this, you must have a degree in this. But we need to move, because intellectualism is not about being in one place, but being in many places at the same time, and at different times and at different places. So once more, I would like to thank the Vice Chancellor, Professor Peters, for hosting this. I'd like to thank you very much, sir, for your kind comment. Professor Sogolo and Nura Ibrahim, you have done wonderful. And of course, I trust Eric to be philosophical. When his big bosses are here, Adeboega is here, and Professor Uduma is here, and yet, look at this, Eric, he's just talking philosophy. But I have taught him to be disruptive also. So Eric is an extremely disruptive element intellectually. That is, I really miss this debate between myself, Eric, and Professor Uduma. And of course, Professor Sogolo. These guys are always depending dead white scientists. And I'm always insisting that we need to move beyond philosophers who don't have fathers. They have no fathers. Professor Peter, sir, BC, sir, I know you are aware of philosophy, but have you ever heard of Aristotle's father? Aristotle had no father. No, the same thing with Socrates. I mean, you are Femi Peters, I'm Abdallah, Adamu, Godwin, Sogolo, but all these guys have no fathers. So that's Aristotle, Socrates, Plato, and so on. And Professor Godwin Sogolo, always have fun when I keep talking to him about all these things. So I would like to thank you once more, the Vice Chancellor, sir, and Professor Hakim Tijani. Every day you organize an activity, I get very, very proud of it. There is a Hausa saying, that is a square peg in a square hole. This is exactly what has happened in this place. I wish you success. I wish you prosperity. I wish the university will continue to support you in this absolutely wonderful activity that you're doing in getting us together to just for a year or so, for an hour or so, to chill out intellectually and dissect issues and agree to disagree. And I know I have disagreed with Professor Sogolo, I've disagreed with Oduma, I've disagreed with Eric, but we're all friends. So once more, gentlemen, I would have loved a lady to say something. Gloria Aneto is
yes, sir. Talking
also
about
somebody I also disagreed with.
Actually,
and we'll keep talking about all sorts of issues and so on. I would like to thank you very much. Once more, Vice Chancellor, sir, I'm honored, very, very honored that you take time out to host this and to make your comments. Professor Tijani, I would also like to thank you very much for thinking about me 12 days after I have left. It seems like you guys don't want me to leave, so I promise you I'll be there and I'll participate in every activity that I'm invited. Oh, thank you very much. There is a book on me, the third book on pedagogy, and then there is the one that has been done by Faculty of Education. I'm really happy and proud that I'm one of the few professors in Nigerian university system that have three page scripts written about his work, and we thank God for all the favor that has been given to us. Professor Samala Mande, thank you very much for your kind comments. I know if they allow you, you'll spend about an hour talking. So, Professor Tijani is a harsh taskmaster. He's always cutting people off. So the best way to deal with Professor Tijani is to keep within time. Thank you very much. And once more, I wish you a very wonderful day and weeks ahead. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you,
yes,
sir.
Thank you very much.
Vice Chancellor, sir.
Mr. Vice Chancellor, Professor Abdallah. It again shows your humility when you purportedly didn't even know that in your new migrant situation, you are as wanted and as intellectual as you were in your first love. Vice Chancellor, I was at the airport in Abuja, and somebody met me, Professor Munzeli, former NUCES, former Vice Chancellor. And he said, Prof, are you aware now that they have given you a new Vice Chancellor? I said, yes, I heard the news as well. He said, well, you couldn't have had it better, you know. You can't have it better, you know. I said, really? He said, yes. This man is humble, but he's an IT giant, and he's an intellectual man, and he has 2 professors. Munzeli was just reading them to me. He was just reading them to me, showing that even without you knowing, your image precedes you. So, and that was the first time I was hearing all those things about you. So, and I said, really? And that we'll find him, we'll enjoy you. He said, when you finish, he now told me that when I finish at Ilorin where I was, I should make sure that I go back and relate with Abdallah. So really, it's been a roller coaster for you. It's been a destiny fulfilled. It's been a fortune realized. Really, you are a blessed person. And I want to thank you for the days you stayed here, the days that you lived in Abuja, that you were pretending over this university. God will continue to show his blessing on you and your family. And what I normally pray for people is peace and joy. I ask that God will give you peace in your life and make you happy. You'll be happy since you left, because there have been so many receptions, even beyond your imagination expected. That is the kind of thing that has happened too. We are all thanking God for what you did in 5 years at Open University. Please, we don't want you to delete yourself from this CEMGS seminars. If you delete all, please stay alive with us in this particular center director, so that occasionally we hear your voice and we hear your contributions. I want to thank you for everything you've done for us. And until we see again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I want to thank Dr. Tijani for Program and Global Studies for this wonderful thing that he has. The switch to start in any moment. More grease to elbow, Professor Tijani.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Can we have the DVC to give us a? I think the Vice Chancellor said a vote of thanks, but the DVC, please, since you're here.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor Tijani, for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I want to appreciate the Vice Chancellor, Professor Olufemi Peters, and our immediate past Vice Chancellor, Professor Abdallah Adamu. Well, from the discussion we had, you see that this perspective is clear, and of which Professor Abdallah admits that he is disruptive. And that's why Professor Sugolo said he's a radical scholar. Nura said he revolutionized the Department of Mass Communication in the UK. Eric said he's a postmodernist. All this moved towards one thing. Professor Abdallah, as you know him, moving into cultural communication was also migrating, as the VC said. But you see, all his tantrums are philosophy. He's always, I normally tell him he's into self-denial because his idol is Popper. And he made his mark. Popper wrote Conscience and Refutations, did a lot of works, but it was the work he did in philosophy, the Open Society and its enemies, that actually brought him to the limelight. In the same way, Professor Abdallah has made more mark in cultural communication than in science education. Of course, that shows that being a radical scholar helps. Thank you very much, Professor Abdallah. We will learn to be disruptive because that's the only way we can move forward, and that's the only way that knowledge can grow. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, sir. And I would like to thank each and every one of you for joining us today and also contributing and learning. We wish all the very best and a pleasant week ahead. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Chairman.